Da 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 da. Do do do. I wanna love you. Da da da. I wanna love you. Do da da. Da na 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 na. Okay, cool. Um, that's what they could. I'm fine with that. Um, I'm fine with that. They can deal with my singing. It's fine. This is why people criticize me. All right. And link is sent. Do you want me to send it on Facebook or in the chat? Okay, cool. But because we're in there. You're back to well within martial arts. Link. And then after that we don't do that, OBS. No, well, no, it's just it because I went to the chat. Come on, don't do that, OBS. Because sure. Get the chat out of there, and OBS is down. Correct. All right, and then I'm gonna flip it from. We can just get started if you want, and we can just kind of just wrap on what we kind of discussed, and then just kind of go from there. If you want, and just talk about the week's training. I just want to make sure there's one more thing on social media that people can see this on. So, we are technically live. So, how to introduce this thing. So, hello everyone who is watching at home. My name is John, and I am joined by Sir Dan Bernardo. It feels like a 70s sketch, right? It's like, hey guys, welcome to our show. Back in the day when they were trying to get away from the American Bandstand type deal. Today is a little something different. So it's not a podcast. As you can see that I'm in a video, and I'm joined by the wonderful Dan, and we're going to kind of do what's on the tin. So this is a live stream called Post Training, and I think a lot of people can relate to post training experiences. Dan, what are some of your post training experiences that you feel that are helpful? Were helpful? Wow. My thing has always been a little different. My thing is post training is kind of where the training is as important, if not more important, to the training, because that kind of is one of those things where you're engaging in training and you're doing training and you're kind of in the thick of it. Generally, there isn't a lot of thought that goes into that, unless there's you do the thing, do this, do that, do it this way, do it that way. And sometimes there's very thoughtful training, but it's not until after you kind of pull back from that where you can kind of look at it and be like, what did I do? And I don't think there's enough of that goes on. Or I'm sure there's probably plenty of it, but it's not cognized in that way, especially the after class moments. And those were the most formative for me when I was coming up, when I was much younger. So I don't know if you've had that experience or. That's tough. Yeah, and that's just like part of having a community, being able to talk and being able to relate to each other in that regard. But one thing I want to focus on, especially in these live streams, is focus on our training and during the week. So I guess, Dan, how was the week? What did you do in terms of training? Because I know you run a professional martial arts school. I'm just a schlub who trains on his own and runs a podcast, um, and or live stream and or media conglomerate. I love that title. My own CEO. That's the American way, right? You know. Yeah. You're on a. Yeah, I'm talking to you from the future. So you're technically for you it's it's only Friday. You got still that Friday night to go. I'm on a Saturday morning at this point. I how like do you start in the morning and then end in the evening? Okay. Yeah, that's tough with with a family and a business and but I mean that's I guess the only way you can make it work safely in that regard is just only kind of going a little bit one or two people, one or two people, one or two people. I've seen other places. Right. Lucky duck. Good. 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 Well, since I just kind of went through a move, and for me, you know, when I where I lived before, there was I would live there for about 2 years, so you get into this certain rhythm, and what was interesting about this move was that like I noticed that like oh, I was doing X, Y, and Z, which was kind of bringing me actually probably bringing my training down a peg, uh, because of kind of the way my I was just kind of allowing my life's rhythm to go rather than taking a little more mindfully, but just the fact I'm in a different space, not better, not worse, just different, has, well, yeah, and then so I think I can kind of walk it through where it's like, I didn't do a whole lot of intense training, but I just had regular training, which the older I get, the more I realize that that's more important than it is because you can't have the super hardcore training every time. And I think, well, yeah, exactly. And but if you have a regular training, you actually end up having a much better longevity. So I mean, if I want to get into specifics, like it's just like a couple, like one or two runs, hitting the bag, Only really one day a week, one day, because I'm still trying to figure out how I can have a bag in this house without pissing off my neighbors. Um, the walls aren't concrete here, so if the bag hits the wall, don't want to break it. Um, Maybe I need to reinvest in a new bag. Um, but my coworkers were like, there's a big gym over there with a big open room. I'm like, really? Awesome. So, um, we're living in a much smaller, much more rural place. So it's big in terms of like landmass, but in terms of population, it's small. So I'm like, hey, slightly pandemic proof. So, uh, yes and no. We have poison snakes that will, if you get bitten, will cause. So you know the snake, the habu. So habu, very famously in Okinawa, but in other islands around Japan. So we have them where I live. So even though where I live is like it's kind of just basically like mountains and town and lake. There's if you go onto the grassy area, it's like keep your eyes open, keep your eyes open, keep your eyes open. There might be a snake in the grass. Um, some of it's but a lot of the area is actually fairly well maintained. So, for that reason, but I've just been doing it in my house. I haven't really been venturing outward, as it were. But it's great. It's great. So, can you tell me a little more about like you were talking about practical training and stuff like that? Specifically, what were you guys working on? In this hypothetical thing called Tai Chi Chuan. Right. So that sounds like a really good really good partner drill. So it's not just so much like a push hands type deal where I've seen this and he recently did a seminar with some of our friends as well, which I kind of just like watched and was like, man, I wish I had friends where I lived, so I can't do it. But it's not just push, pull, push, pull. You're actually pushing and trying to find that gap and take it, and then the other person is trying to find a gap on you and take it, and then you're constantly trying to stop that gap while also trying to take their gap. So, right. That's the first time I've heard that term used in that way. Right. Okay. No, that makes perfect. Well, I mean, it's interesting because when I was you normally see Tai Chi people won't really engage in that way. They will just kind of do the art and that's that. Um, Not all the time, and I think nowadays it's kind of do or die for a lot of people. They can't. It's not so much like probably 30 years ago where these people do Tai Chi, and these people do like martial arts, right? They people who want to do martial arts also want to do Tai Chi, combining them. There's the same thing with karate. So a lot of people like they view the MMA perspective now, and they see the karate training of I don't want to say it was yesteryear, but they see like old karate training, and they need to kind of step up that game because of the kind of whole scene there. But if you step up your game, then you're actually seeing what the real karate training is, rather than kind of sitting on your heels. So, and I think, hmm, what guy are you meeting down the street? Is he working out of a van? You want to get away from those people, Dan. I'm a little worried. Sorry, this is a podcast. I can't riff like that. We're talking about practical training. This is a live stream. I'm gonna try to do something different. Yeah. Right. And I think what ends up happening, and this is the flaw in my own training that I was working on this week, and I was like, how do I fix this? How do I uproot this? So it's to not just to let myself sit there, and this is a constant thing I see in my own training where it's I can do forms all day long, different versions of forms, faster version of the form, a stronger version of the form. I'll do a form on a bag. Forms are great for that, but there's a certain point where where if you're just doing that, you are gonna lose out on your abilities, and part of that's because I don't have a lot of training partners. I don't have any training partners right now, but also part of that's like if you look at other types of training, they require you to have some sort of material. They require you to have that, and so one thing I've been focusing on is just physicality because I don't know if you've seen this, but I've definitely felt this, and it's the goal I've tried to overcome this week. Where I've overcome it, and then like I'll let it go away for a little while, and then this is admitting a weakness. Is that I can sit in horse stance and do soto uke, or do a punch, or do like Nahachi Shodan a million times. Uh, Down for push-ups. Suddenly everyone's like, oh, so, right? So suddenly it's okay for you to move your arms around in all these different ways, but suddenly when you have to press up your arm against your own weight and gravity, doing 10 of them's hard. And so, that was my big thing in terms of training this week was just mixed forms, bag work, and those type of calisthenics together. And not in a super hard and intense way, just in a regular way. Make it regular. Don't make it something special or mentally and also physically. Make it something that you can just do. So, yeah. Right. And this is where I've gotten kind of trying to break the image in my own training, where it's like there's some schools they will just go do forms and don't do physical and don't really focus on the physical. That says a lot about the person who's teaching. That kind of automatically tells you about that. Personally, that's why I'm very happy that I don't have a dojo right now. I'm very happy that I don't have that responsibility to the students because I have to represent that. And as to not denigrate people who can't do that or don't do that or don't have an ability to do that. Yeah, but it's something in a lot of ways you have to be able to do. You have to be able to have that, and that's one thing this week in training. Something I'm trying to do. I'm trying to build back up. Is weirdly enough, before I moved, I did like 21 kilometer run, and yeah, but it just felt like to me it was just like kind of just it felt like running through mud because I just wasn't in. I could do it, but I wasn't. I didn't feel like yeah, I did it. I was like oh god, I did it. But because I wasn't having the regular training, wasn't going along with being able to do like the super training, the kind of the bigger stuff. Um, so that was my struggle this week, I think. That's what. But as someone who has, I guess I can ask this: as someone who has students and runs a dojo or sorry dojang martial arts school, I know you get hung up on words sometimes. Um, you do martial arts. This is nonsense at that point. Just do the kata. Just do the. Hmm. Hmm. We'll talk about this. Well, there's something I'll talk to you about off air about. Not as regards to how that might sound in English, but in regards to something else we were talking about. But in terms of your own training, right? In terms of because you've got a lot of students, you train them fairly regularly. It's almost every day. I'm assuming every day or almost every day. Uh, right. So in terms of your training, right? In terms of what you do, just you alone, where do you feel your training was this week? Yeah. Hmm. Okay. I wasn't there. I don't know. I'm not getting that. Not getting that fight because I do Pasai too. Pasai is the Pasai. People who do Pasai show up, Pasai die, and they get into fights over which one's which and whatever. Um, we just have in the system. It's just Pasai. I've always and the nice thing is I've had to go through a couple teachers and a couple. Now so we start boom, and then it goes down. It's like the so it starts like the Hachi. So it starts here and goes down. I'm doing this in front of a mic, so it looks bad. There we go. So doing that, right? And some like there's like different versions of it that it could be done. Oh yeah, yeah. Whereas where ours is essentially, some people do it over the hand. Some people have made it the deal where it's just over these two knuckles. But it's very similar to that. To like most of the other passes is very similar to like the hand motion you made. Very similar to that. Um, for me, pasai has always felt like kind of like the penultimate. Because for me, when I initially trained, it was like the penultimate kata. It's the kata I did like the longest, and it was the easiest when I went over to other people. It was the easiest to adjust for. I learned actually when I originally trained. I learned Nahachi later, so Naihachi was kind of I because with a lot of the Rikyu Kempo guys, Naihachi gets changed like 5 times a day. So I in the last couple of years, I was just like, nope, Naihachi is one way, and this is the way I do it. See that 1985 video? That's the way I do it. You got another way of doing it? Fantastic. You want to do it 5 different ways? I know 5 different ways too, but I'm good with just the one way we do it. Because what's the bunkai? Because let's not worry about that. So, but Pasai for me has always been something I've trained the longest, but it's something I've never. I've always felt it's kind of like that's the unlock point where it goes from easy to real. And every person I've trained with, they've always had something like either felt like they needed to say something big about it, or felt like it was a big enough deal. Maybe not. I don't know. Everyone gets to see how long this cord is. Actually, so. Hey. Our buddy from down south got into trouble. This is like talking about BDS. Like we're gonna get canceled for talking about this that way, okay? So let's be careful. Don't want to get the Shotokan people on our bad. We don't get on the bad side of the Shotokan people. They're like the lobbying. They're like the lobbying arm of karate, where like if you piss them off, like they're gonna come after us. No, we accept our Shotokan friends and think that we have lots of Shotokan friends. I've known some of my best friends are Shotokan friends. Well, so yeah, well, and that's where I think there's a lot of similarities between the styles is basically in that. But there's, especially when I've worked with Pusai, I don't know how we're getting in this conversation with Pusai, but Pusai is one of those things where it's like, I start doing that. Yeah, right. Sorry. Pusai. Right on. It's a good one to focus on. And it's always one when I focus on it, it's like that becomes the thing I do for a while, and then I stop doing it. It's like, what kata? Oh, Pusai. So, but I think that's where a lot of people go in and out of their own training. Um, right. So what's the so I guess one thing, kind of some of the questions we've talked about before. What's the in terms of training, because we're talking about post training and the week's training. And we cannot discount nutrition from this in any regard. So, what is the worst thing you ate this week? What was your cheat day? Pepperoni. Pepperoni is the cheat is the cheat food. Yeah. Raw. Okay. I get paranoid with meat. When it comes to meat, I'm just like, nah, it's got to be heated. We got to put it in the microwave for at least 5 minutes, and then put it on the pan for at least 10 minutes, and then cover it with some sort of oil to make sure that it's cooked properly, because that's how you cook meat, right? Uh, that's my own paranoia with meat. Okay, I'll take. I can see that. I don't particularly care for. It's not I don't care for it. Like, because I'm American too. You know, we love red meat. Uh, but and we're both. You have much more of an Italian last name than I do, but we both have that blood from that sunny peninsula in the southern Europe. Okay. We have shared heritage then in that regard. Yeah. Fun things for finding out on this live stream. So no, I don't. I know who like the people in New York are, but that's because of other things. I'm somehow related to the guy who like did the Magic song. Somehow, we're getting on. We're getting on this topic. I ate Family Mart this week. That was the worst thing I ate. I went to Family Mart, which is like a little convenience store in Japan, um, and when I first moved here a couple weeks ago, it was like going there like every other day, and now this week was just one time, It was just one time. But I will say that I don't think it was the worst thing that I ate, but it was kind of the best thing that happened. Just yesterday for me was Friday, so I knocked off of work on Friday. My Friday's a little longer of a drive. I came back to where I am, and I was like, "Hey, I'll go to this little shop, grab some vegetables." Outside that shop was a food truck, and I was like, food truck food, yes." And it was delicious. It was like an avocado panini, which I don't think was that bad for me. Um, and it had a vegetable in it, so it's fine. So Ron Swanson puts the banana in the hamburger and eats it. It works out pretty well. So Dan, what do you think next week in terms of kind of, I guess, from this week, from your training with both Qigong but also Pasai, where do you think that leads you into next week? Okay. Is there any particular way you feel you can get that done? Right on, right on. And is that integrating what you feel you've been working with Pasai, or is that just a kind of a different segue? Mm. Okay. Because that it because the kind of difference. I don't know if you can still hear me because I'm not very close to the mic. The only difference in that regard, because I got the headphones on, but it's got a long cord, so it's okay. So it'd be like then coming down here, and then coming up and doing the side kick. It doesn't go super high, but it does. It kind of it goes in that direction where it's here. It doesn't come. I mean, It's a difference of just going down, going up. Um, Drop down, but I mean, there's a relation there. Ugh. That's the first time I've gotten on camera and done just been like, this is the thing that I do. New things today. Hmm. Yeah, I wouldn't want to be on the other side of that. That's more impressive than mine. That's for damn sure. No, but I mean, that's work on sidekicks. I'll do that. Well, and that's interesting because I mean, sidekicks are one of the things I noticed in a lot of their karate with focusing like working with other people in terms of karate, in terms of sparring. A lot of people don't take advantage of this. A lot of people like doing the roundhouse kick. They like doing the roundhouse kick, but despite like what I've always learned with our sparring was sidekicks are your best bet in a lot of ways. Yeah, because sidekick. I mean, they're harder to set up, but they're also sparring, self defense, sidekicks. Should be your go to. Um, that's why it's called a sidekick. Okay, it sounds like you're enjoying that a bit too much. Remember, you're on camera saying that. So, yeah, it's a but it's one of the most practical things you've seen. I remember teaching somebody doing the side kick and just doing the look. I'm gonna do the thing again. Um, do the thing where it's there's an old video. Mr. Oyata goes 1, 2, boom. Just shows that as just that very basic technique, and need to do a John sits down, kind of like how Riker sits down, but we'll get to that later. Uh, the the sidekick was. I remember showing that to somebody. It was weird. Weird. This guy just kind of. I had rented out a space somewhere, and I had a couple students, and this guy really like this like long. He looked like a biker, like just long hair, grizzly beard, just not big, like kind of a little more like your build, but and then he's just like, I'm here for the karate. He was like an hour late. I'm like, okay, come on in, and we started doing that technique and just showing him basics with it. He's like, you could really fuck somebody up with that. I'm like, yeah, you could. And then I never saw him again. So, I had no idea what where this guy came from. If he saw a flyer, this just always remained in my head about sidekicks and teaching that to people. Mm. Which is, I mean, well, yeah, I mean, most of it is, but it's all like it's also one thing I've this is Sidekick Hour with John and Dan. Um, so I was, how long do we listen to this talking about sidekicks? The thing is, one of the, well, the thing with the sidekick was that had always been in my head. Sidekicks are really useful. Sidekicks are very practical. They're very universal. You know, you'll be able to use them. And one another person I've been training with, someone who's much older. On a kind of a training visit I did one time with another teacher, another martial artist. One guy was telling me he worked in a prison and did that. He did that to somebody. And what we don't really anticipate is that we think, yeah, the sidekick's great, the sidekick's great, the sidekicks are kind of a great Hail Mary. They are, but we don't think about the aftermath. So the aftermath in that regard was a guy in a prison had done that, took the guy down, guy fell on top of him, screwed up his knee, like completely, and he had to get like cartilage surgery and stuff like that. So this goes into the question with sidekicks: which one do we do? Do we do the sidekick that goes boom and we pull back, or do we do the sidekick that goes boom and straight down and completely go for the takedown? And after just hearing that experience and seeing what kind of the results of that did to this guy he was older, he was probably in his 50s or 60s, has always made me rethink how do we teach people these techniques. I'm not saying you're doing anything wrong or anyone else is, but you know, from that experience, from that story, even if it was embellished, how do we maybe teach them the way to anticipate Okay. Even in the forums? Hmm. Yeah, and I think that's got to be the safest way you do it, because otherwise, then you're because I think a lot of people get into the sparring mindset, and they don't realize that you can do like there's a that weird exposure that you have, and that's why a lot of people don't like kicking, and that's why I think boxing just doesn't do that, because why would you expose your groin that way? Why would you expose yourself that way? So it goes into that goes into a much larger footwork discussion that might be good for a different time. But what where I might be going this week is taking just more of a look at like what how much regularity or what how my regularity is going to go this week, and uh, checking out if I can go to the gun show at this gym. So I'm I have this policy of sun's out, guns out. So sun's out today. So I'm just thinking of the last year. I'm just like all the horror of the pandemic and the kind of the economic disparity, like the dismemberment of the society, and all of the the terrible things that have happened, the toll of life and the general cost and the human cost, and the great political and social strife. Somehow this 6-year-old learned guns, suns out, guns out. That somehow that was the takeaway from all of this. Somehow, at the end of the day, I don't know, that should give some people some level of hope. Uh, right. This is, I think the weird effects of the pandemic is just making the kids grow up in different ways than what we were used to. You know, we heard this idea of sea shanty, and like maybe if you live in a port town somewhere, you may have heard of it. Now, because of the kids on the TikToks and the iPhones and the jumping jacks, and got uh. But I think that's a good point to kind of maybe wrap it up a little, if you wanted to. And Dan, thank you so much for joining this inaugural live stream. It's kind of a fun experiment. We wouldn't have been able to do it without you. So cool. Well, folks, thanks for watching. Those who have been watching, and hope you enjoyed whatever this was. And if you like it, we'll come back and do some more. Cool. All right, folks. Have a good week. And stream. And scene.